Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another season review. This is our 8th season review, isn't it, Alex? If I'm not very much mistaken. Time flies when we're having fun, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Looking forward to this one.
We are indeed, and we got new cars this year as well. We've got a ground effect here, which, for my small brain, Alex, I'm not really sure what that means. Does it mean that we're going to have more closer racing, do you reckon?
It should hopefully, and it will promote the racing much more closely between all the cars throughout the field.
I am looking forward to that as well then. So, yeah, the ground effect here is going to get underway in just a few moments. And of course, we have got 5 races to go through for this season review tonight then. And the admin Farf has picked out 3 of his favourite, and the other 2 we picked out for him because Farf cannot have too many choice in life, can he? And we're now on to Bahrain then. And of course, Bahrain is the race in the middle of the desert then. So this is the first race of the season. And what do you think of Bahrain then, Alex? And of course, it's changed to a night race recently, hasn't it? And it hasn't changed to a night race recently. Of course, it changed back to a night race back in 2014. But there's 3 DRS zones around this circuit then, and I've got to say, a lot of undulation. What are you making of the circuit here in Bahrain?
Well, personally, I don't like it myself for racing on, but I think in terms of switching over to the night race, it's promoted a bit more better racing, I think, because the temps are a bit lower for the tyres and that sort of thing. Yeah, myself, not a fan of the track, but like you said, with the 3 DRS zones, it does promote overtaking.
It does indeed, and I think in all three championships, all 3 divisions, well, technically 4, but I can't remember the 100% race around Bahrain because, of course, that was more of a kind of like a kind of it was a bit of randomized, wasn't it? But yeah, for the first 3 races in Bahrain, we had absolutely doozy races left, right, and centre, and it was I must say that we started the championship quite late on in the game, which is very unusual for ALR. We're usually like 2 weeks and then we're cooking on gas, but Alex. We did hear a lot of grumbling from the drivers about the characteristics of the car. Could you expand on that?
Not really. I think it just they didn't fancy it. In some cases, the cars, like I said, just the handling away, the way it is that it's set up on this one. But yeah, I think yeah, some people just couldn't get to grips with it. To be fair, and some people struggled. And but there, to be fair, the ones who carried on and kept on going are the ones that credit to them, put in a good show throughout the 24 rounds of the whole season.
Indeed, and to be honest, I don't like to be a negative Nancy, but we did have 65 drivers that took part in gold in the end, which was ridiculous, really, wasn't it? As a lot of drivers did really struggle to get to grips then. Anyway, let's get on to the positive, shall we? Personally, yeah, it's not the best F1 game in the world, in my opinion, but it certainly isn't the worst. Then, if you want to go for one of the worst F1 games ever, try F1 98. Alex, can you remember F1 98, or is that something that you don't really want to think
Well
about?
before my time. Well before my time. I think, but to be fair though, I think I was only a couple of years later. I think it was 2001 was the first F1 game I played on PC. That was it back in the day when you had to get a massive like video sort of thing from the game store and then plug it into your PC, which was the size of a house. But yeah, that was my first game of F1. That is.
PC mastery, I love it. Anyway, enough of showing showing our ages there, and you can see that Milan and Danger Times seems to be attracted to each other there, don't they? As of course we had the Justice for Danger Times towards the end of I think it was season 6 in the end, wasn't it? Of course, Danger Times, the defending champion, he didn't participate in many races in the end. I think he only participated in 5 or 6, which is a shame now. But I do feel that Danger Times was a step off of his absolute best in this season, which was such a shame. Then he was still mighty quick then, because he had a couple of podiums in his championship campaign, but unfortunately, he didn't. I don't think he lasted any further than past Spain. I think it was in the end there, unfortunately. But as you can see, we've already had a couple of a couple of spins already. Very hard to keep the cars on the circuit around Bahrain, Alex. And of course, you participated a lot in the gold race as well. You weren't in this one, but I think you participated in well over, I think it was about 16 or 17 races. How did you feel the car was going for yourself when you went for the Williams team?
Well, by the end of it, sort of got the hang of it. I think I wasn't that fast though, but no, interesting to race in the Gold League. Of course, there's lots of fast drivers there in the Gold League, but I think consistency is key in the races that I did anyway, and managed to get some points here and there, luckily. But yeah, we've seen the form of most of the Gold drivers there. They're absolutely incredible in the Gold division, of course. But yeah, like I said, I was just trying to cling onto the track and try and stay on the grey stuff and get to the finish line.
Sounds like me, to be honest. Good job that the pit lane is automated, otherwise I'll be going out the wrong way. Lucas Percy taking the lead in this one. And of course, any of you long-time ALR fans then will notice there's a couple of new drivers in here in the opening stage of this Gold Championship. Of course, we've got Lucas Percy, who's not a new driver by any stretch of imagination, a championship contender. Of course, season 7 was curtailed a bit then, as he had a bit of a falling out of his teammate. But this season, I think that Lucas Percy, we did see the best of him, especially in the opening stages of his championship campaign. There's German having an issue there, and I think that's Milan again, unfortunately. So in 11 laps, Milan has hit both champions that have started this race there. So oh dear, that didn't start off too well, did it? But of course, there's a name then, Wouter, then, who was driving his debut here in Bahrain and doing an absolutely magnificent job there. And we got 3 cars there going into one car. Oh my goodness gracious me there. And Chazza having a nightmare start to his campaign. However, it does get better for Chazza. This is one of his better seasons there. As we've also got Liam, fighting with Jar, and with German also there as well. But Alex, I know you don't like this circuit as much, but goodness gracious me, there's a lot of side-by-side action here, and you've seen that they've got a very well, interesting indeed, a lot of contact there. Do you think that was just race rustiness? However, we were starting quite late.
Yeah, I think, like I said, a few people trying to get used to the drivers on the grid, because obviously they haven't raced together with everybody. Maybe a handful of them every now and then, but not consistently with the whole group. So I think maybe that was what you can chalk up to the race rustiness that you were saying there.
Yeah, I would I think so anyway, to be honest. I have no idea because, of course, remember my race pedigree as I took out Dylan, my championship teammate back in Brazil, so less said about that, the better. We got some more racing then up into turn 4, I think it is. The Ferrari German there having an up and down race and start off his championship campaign, and unfortunately, that was kind of the sign of things to come for the former champion German. What did you make of his season overall, Alex?
Yeah, like I said, he never usually has a good first race, to be honest. I think even when he won the championship, he got 1 point in Bahrain in his first race of that season as well. So and it was a shorter season as well. So you can never write off German there for a good season after that first race of the season, of course. So yeah, he bounced back in a fantastic style indeed. Of course, getting P4 in the end, I think it was, in the drivers' standings for the Ferrari team as well. So yeah, you could never cut him out there for some good points. And of course, later on in the season, actually, he got a couple of wins under his belt as well.
He did indeed. I think it was the British Grand Prix, wasn't it? If my memory serves me. Your memory's a lot better than mine, Alex. I think ever since I've turned 30, I must admit, I'm kind of getting a bit old for my age these days. You see Mr. Elite then, of course, I think he reached his 96 Grand Prix start in gold, which is a testament to Mr. Elite. He made his debut back in Spain of season 1. Mr. Elite, though, didn't... his yard went around there. That was a violent spin. Goodness gracious me. I'm more impressed that he actually knows where he's going there. Gosh, have you ever had a problem where you've spun violently and wondered where you were on the circuit?
No. Thankfully not. Thankfully, I've just been able to get myself back underway. But what I think we've seen, especially in the divisions a bit lower down as well, is that a lot of drivers there get frustrated a bit too easily there with a mistake or a spin, and then it ends in even more chaos for themselves. And trying to get restarted after a spin is as we got a very nice move indeed there from Lucas Percy there up into the podium places, but. Yeah, trying to get yourself restarted after a spin, as there you go. Just as I said that, a commentator cursed him even after the Grand Prix for Lucas Percy. They're dropping back down the order, but yeah, you just need to make sure you keep the temperatures down. Don't go super fast off the restart, and just try and keep those temperatures cooled down so you can get yourself back underway in the Grand Prix. As Clarkey there had a mistake as well, it looks like.
Oh dear, and same with Mr. Rage as well, right into the bar there, and goodness me, we might need an ambulance for that. But Mr. Rage there just getting back on circuit. And I'm glad that you've also got the commentator's curse now, Alex, 'cause I've seen a couple of times in 100% and in Silver that you did give a couple of drivers the dreaded commentator's curse, which I'm very happy about, because it takes a bit of light off me after all the bad memories I've given all these drivers out. We got Wuto coming across the line there to win. This was his reserve racer because he was in place for Troy in that Grand Prix with Pease having a great start there. Of course, this was Pease's return to ALR because I think he took a season out. Danger Times the championship, the world champion there, P3 in the end. He did have a couple of podiums this season, but it was a bit of a difficult one. I want to point out Marky because I've Marky in it. This is debut gold, debut season in gold, and I keep forgetting that because up until this point he was always driving for silver on Monday nights. And Alex, how difficult is it to jump from silver to gold then? From of course you've never raced in silver as a full-time driver then, but how do you like get into gold then and like be able to hit the ground running?
It's a bit of a step up, isn't it? Yeah, but I think Marky's managed it very well indeed. He's got some really good pace there on the this season. He's had some really good pace on this game as well. So yeah, he's one of the drivers I think that might not have been too fed up with the game earlier on, but I think it did tail off unfortunately for Marky towards the end of the season. But he got some really good points there in the first few races or the first half of the season there to maximise in the Gold Season 8.
He did indeed, and yeah, I echo that entirely because I think the Marquis was superb in the opening couple of races. We go on to Miami now. This is the first time we've raced in Miami, and of course, very interesting indeed. And this is a very odd race to start this race because it was a wet circuit with dry tyres there. I can't remember a league race where he had to start on dry tyres, and you could see that in the background there was absolute anarchy left, right, and centre. Let's talk about the weather first. And starting a Grand Prix on dry tyres, Alex, how difficult was that for the drivers?
I can imagine I've done it before as well, but I can imagine for those drivers as well, the drivers who are very capable of racing at top speed to every occasion. It's probably quite difficult indeed trying to actually having to sort of rein in your inputs and then trying to make sure that you keep the car on a track. It's very difficult to drive in these sort of conditions on the dry tyres, as we've seen, especially around this circuit as well. Where it's an unknown circuit, like you said, so there's a lot more mistakes that are prone because we're not familiar with it. We haven't raced week in, week out around this sort of circuit before.
Yeah, and of course, what is your impressions of Miami there? Of course, when I first heard about Miami, we was going to race around a car park. I had flashbacks from 1982 Caesar's Palace. By the way, I'm not that old. I just remember watching a YouTube chat program about it. But I was that circuit was not, let's just say, it wasn't the most popular in the world. And of course, that was also in Las Vegas, believe it or not, which is the circuit we're going to coming up in season 9 of ALR. But what did you make of Miami then? It's an interesting circuit. I must say, I do like this. There's a very tight and technical, twisty part of the circuit, but it's not very. I don't think it's very rewarding for the drivers.
Yeah, I think it's a good circuit. I think if it actually had a bit more time and maybe a bit more tweaks, it would be a pretty good F1 circuit for racing in real life and in the game, of course. But yeah, I think just potentially on this game, I think maybe next game we'll see it improve in terms of with the traction and the handling model of the 23 games coming out in a minute. But yeah, we'll hopefully have better racing around here as well, and I think it will lend itself much better to the new format of the game as well that's coming out in F1 23. That is compared to what it was like this season. But in terms of the real life racing as well around here, I think again, as it seems like there's a few people having problems there. KD's off the circuit, and there's all sorts of things going on in that tight stadium section, or tight underpass section, I should say, which I don't really like, to be honest. You said you love it, but I don't. I think that's the worst part of the circuit in total. But yeah, there's a great overtake coming up here. So we can see their X game, and they're going for it on 2 people. They're down into the penultimate corner. But yeah, like I was saying, I think it can be a good circuit. I think it could be. I think it could be a very good circuit indeed. Potentially, it just needs maybe a couple of things here and there that need to be sorted out. Of course, being a sort of makeshift street circuit, being built around the car park, like you were saying, it may be maybe more difficult to try and sort that sort of thing out for the actual Grand Prix and that sort of thing. But you never know. But yeah, I think. Maybe not the best for league racing, but I think it's probably one that's in the middle there. It's not a horrendously bad track, but it's not an amazing track at the same time.
And to be honest, it's not in too bad, is it? And I think we seem to be getting more races over in America. And of course, I think we got about 3 races in America next year, which will be very good indeed, wouldn't it? As we're just watching Wouter. Of course, he won the first race of this review, didn't he? Wouter did in fine style when he's in the AlphaTauri. Now he got a full-time seat in the Alpine. There is a Fangio. You will see a lot of Fangio in the season review of Silver tomorrow night. So keep our eyes peeled on that one. Fangio is just a super sub here. It's not on board with Wouter, then who's chasing down a Mortal. It seems like we have a lot of guest appearances in this race, in this one, Alex. We've got Immortal, who's usually his primary trade is in 100%. We got got Fangio, who's primary trades in silver. Goodness gracious me, mix and match there. We've got Box Toes leading the way at the moment there, as we've got it's yourself, Alex. I thought I'd put it in there just to give you a just to give you a bit of
wow, what a surprise.
Ed's a nice guy. Don't worry, Forrest got the same treatment in at silver. We got Troy and Percy having a good old scrap at the end of the lap as well. Only 2 DRS zones around this circuit. As Percy has gone into the pits, I did want to ask you about the tyres there. On this game, I did feel like that the undercut was not as powerful as it was on F1 2021. And it seems that the hard tyres especially were struggling to warm up. Am I right in that?
I think it does depend on the strategy, yeah, but I think you're right. If you started on the medium compound tyres and switched to the hards during the Grand Prix, it was just you were never going to get. Maybe you might be lucky, but unless it depended on your outlap and of course the other person's laps as well when they're out on circuit still, but. The hard compound tyres, they took almost a lap to warm up, didn't they? And it was just horrendous. And you'd lose if you could compare the time loss. You'd lost about 3 seconds on your outlap just trying to get the hard compound tyres up to temperature there. So that's where we saw a lot of people on sort of contra strategies, on different strategies at the beginning of the race there to try and negate that time loss during the pit stop phases in the middle of the Grand Prix. And that's where it sort of came into play there, and that's why I think I would say that the sort of undercuts didn't really work in this game, just purely because just tyre warm up, even on the medium compound tyres, it still took half a lap or so, and the soft compound tyres were much quicker than both, obviously. But still, yeah, there was that sort of uncertain phase at the beginning of the stint when you came out of the pit lane. You didn't know what grip you were going to have on your tyres, and that was just problematic.
And what do you think about that? Do you think that's better for the show, or do you think that's worse for the show? From an entertainment point of view, I know you've now moved into the commentary box full-time on Monday nights, Ed. So how would you feel from a spectator that worked? Does that make it better racing?
I think in terms of making it more interesting, I think it's probably not as good, because you can then have, like you said, you could have strategy sort of battles in a way in the pit stops, and then you can have undercuts, overcuts, all sorts of things going on as well out on track, and then in the pit stop phase as well. And obviously, just one of the spectacles of F1 is just comparing, is that car going to get out ahead of the other one in this out of the pit stop phase. So yeah, I think in terms of the undercut sort of things, it has lost a bit of a spectacle there, because you can pretty much guarantee that you'll come out in a certain place unless there's somebody who has a mistake there on their lap. If they carry on, or somebody has a slow pit stop, for example, then they'll come out behind. So yeah, I think in the next game, which I've sort of been very keen on keeping my eye on and seeing if it's going to be any good. In the next game, I think it's a lot more easier to get yourself going after coming out of the pit lane on a fresh set of tyres. I think the temperature thing is still there, as Troy goes for a bit of a spin there around the sort of stadium section there, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's easier to warm up your tyres on the new game. So I'm looking forward to that sort of racing style coming back, where you can literally just box for undercut and get on some fresh tyres and go for it, and then get ahead of a couple of cars by making the strategy call there.
I do agree with you. I don't want to be a negative Nancy on this, but I do prefer... oh my gosh, I thought Wouter was going to the side of Brothers there. I do agree with you, because I do feel that going for the undercut there is... it was one part that really made the strategy very interesting to watch. Then, so I'm glad that you agree with me in a way, because I was a bit worried about how people will react to that. Talking of reacting now, I this was kind of, I think that this was kind of the start of a season-long rivalry between Boxtel and Percy. The World Championship in Gold. This is one of the better World Championships in Gold, and I absolutely enjoyed this one from start to finish. It was entertaining. We had three separate parts of the championship. It's like three sectors, really, isn't it, in a way? We had, at the beginning of the season, it was Percy. Then the middle of the season, it was Boxtown. Then towards the end, it was Troy. Oops, spoiler alert, I shouldn't have said that. But you get the cut, my jib. But Boxtown and Percy seem to have a very aggressive style towards each other. Is that their general? Is that their style in general, or do you think that there's a bit of needle between them? And have you ever had a problem with another driver on circuit?
I'm sure I've had plenty, to be honest. I can't count them all on one hand. No, I think, like I said, they're both both at the top of the field, of course, both fighting for the wins and the big points, and they're. I think they want to go pretty much like real F1, and you've seen in sort of the likes of Drive to Survive, where they are fighting for every single point, and they want to maximise everything in every single race as well, of course, for their championships. And so you'll see here a very nice move indeed, just about on the edge of in control, I think there. But yeah, that was the sort of thing that was very much just on the limit there, I think, between the two of them, really, as well, through most of the season. And unfortunately, like you said as well, it cost them a few points here and there as well in some races.
It did, and I think in the end, I think in the end it potentially cost Percy and Boxtel maybe the championship. I'm not taking anything away from Troy, but I do think that those two drivers certainly did cost each other a couple of points here and there, as you said then. And later on in the review, spoiler alert, you're going to see one of those highlights of that as well, or lowlights potentially. But yeah, Percy won that race after that last-ditch effort down into, I think it was turn 18 in the end. My goodness me, as Knowles said, that was borderline, wasn't it? When I was commentating on it, I didn't even expect for him to go for a lunch, and especially so early on in the championship. There is 24 races in the World Championship in Gold this season, the most we've ever had, and it's most races, and also most in turn, well, of course, the longest as well in terms of length as well. Alex, before we go on to Spain, then of course a lovely Spanish Grand Prix. How having 24 races in a single season, how does that change your psyche at all then? Of course, we've had short seasons in like Bronze, for example, where we've had 11 races before, but having 24 races, that seems like quite a long season. How difficult is it to keep yourself motivated, and how difficult is it to keep yourself up to speed against your rivals?
Well, like I said, it's the longest season in ALR history, wasn't it? It was I think we've done 22 races before, was the longest season, and now, of course, beating it by two. Here this season in season 8. So like I said, it's the longest season ever, and that does like I said, I think that's probably one of the reasons why, like you said earlier as well, that we've seen so many people leave Gold, because they just couldn't keep up with it, really, to be honest, because they've just fallen by the wayside, unfortunately. So yeah, that's probably why. And again, the long season there has helped some drivers there who, of course, are more consistent. Because they can maximise their points and, of course, gain more points during the races. But in some cases, I think that there's some people who, of course, who've just not enjoyed the game as well, and just had that feeling that it was time up already before they got to the finish line. Unfortunately, in the 24 races. But yeah. Like I said, it was a long season indeed. Obviously, we as admins have felt that as well, to be honest. Yeah, we'll hopefully not have to do a 24 race season ever again. Yeah, I think there's been some positives and some negatives from it as well. So I think, for example, I remember Troy saying as well that it means more to win the championship there, because, of course, of how long the season is, that sort of thing. Because you're putting in the effort and the time, week in, week out, as many weeks as you can, of course, to try and get as many points as you can each race. So I think that's where it means a bit more when you do get the result as well.
And talking of Troy Boxtel, Percy, and I think Mr. Reid as well, all those drivers had 20 plus race appearances as well. So hats off to him as well over that long season. I think we started in August, didn't we? Something like that. Gosh, that feels like a long time ago. Just watching Liam Yedden in the middle of the pack. Then I do want to touch on, well, before we go any further, let's go back to Lucas Percy now. Lucas Percy then seemed to be involved in a lot of first corner issues there. I think that. Do you think that Percy should have changed his approach into first into first laps, or do you think he was just very unlucky?
I think there's an element of luck there, pretty much on every race start, whoever you are, really. Going into turn one at any circuit with 20 drivers all barreling into that one corner at the same speed at the same time in F1 cars is it's not going to be well 100% guaranteed that everyone's going to get through in one piece. And unfortunately, I think like you said there, Lucas Percy's come off worse in more occasions than one. But yeah, again, I think we went back to that with the aggressive style of racing between Jordi Boxtel and Lucas as well in Miami. But I think it's fair enough being an aggressive racer. Of course, you can be an aggressive racer so long as you're within the limits and actually show some respect to the other drivers on track. You can be aggressive and show respect at the same time. It's not one or the other. But yeah, unfortunately, like I said, I think he's just come off. It was just down to luck in most situations for Lucas there. He just had, or for Percy, sorry, he just didn't have the luck on those occasions, unfortunately.
And of course, another man who struggled with first lap incidents as well was Sebastian Vettel in 2008. There, so obviously Alex has been doing his homework there. He knew I was going to ask that, and yeah, Sebastian Vettel as well had issues as well in 2008. I think it was. I think he crashed in. He had first lap incidents in 4 or 5, the first 5 races in 2008. Remember, he, in that season went off to win the Italian Grand Prix as well. Anyway, enough about real life F1. Let's get back to this, shall we? Troy coming out of the pits now. Then on lap 20 out of 33. This was going to be a barnstorming finish. Once again, an alternative strategy, which you would have thought like 6 weeks into well, almost 8 seasons into my commentary story these days, you would have thought that I wouldn't be surprised by strategy. But even then, I still am now because I think I was still kerfuffled going into round 23, to be honest, Alex, wasn't I really? But anyways, we come out the final turn. We got Troy leading the way from Bradders and Boxtel with Immortal and PZ. Pease, who we seen, was leading the championship very early on then, but he seemed to drop off a bit, unfortunately, Pease did. But I do want to talk about the Haas team in particular. Haas had a nightmare season last season where drivers were coming in and out. Then it was we was having different drivers every week. Same for what Williams had this season, unfortunately. Alex and Nigel had to steady the ship in the end for the Williams team, but Williams, who finished second in the constructors last season, had an absolute shambles of a season, unfortunately, this season. But Haas were brilliant indeed. Alex, I know that not many drivers care about the Constructors' Championship, but I certainly do. I love it. Do you ever think about a Constructors' Championship, especially in your early years of ALRs, when you were challenging Emerson back in season 5, I believe it was? Was you also concerned about maybe taking the fight in the Constructors as well as the drivers?
I think you have to focus on the constructors. I always want your teammate, unless they're fighting for the title with you, I suppose, which hasn't been the case for myself before, but thankfully. But well, I haven't been fighting for many titles. That's also why. But yeah, if your teammate is doing well, and obviously and you're doing well, then it promotes a good team sort of, I don't know, ethos, I would say. It encourages both of you to sort of work together and do well, and I think we've seen some of that from the teams in ALR, not just in gold this season as well. So yeah, the teams that have done well, I think, have been working together actually and maximising what they can get from each race. Even if it's a bad race, they've carried on, they kept on going, they've tried to get at least a point or two, or nick a point or two here and there, to at least keep them in with a shout of scoring some points and getting them up the order in terms of the constructors as well. So yeah, I think, like I said, I wouldn't say it's a focus all the time in league racing, that is, but I especially think if you've got a teammate that you can work well with, it really helps. It helps your racing, it helps their racing, and then overall with that goal, you end up with some constructors points as well, which is very nice indeed. In terms of the Haas as well, like you said at the start of this season, they were looking absolutely amazing. Both of the drivers there, I think it was Liam who was partnered with Mr. Rage there. Of course, Mr. Rage there carried on scoring some great points indeed throughout the season and was very consistent indeed and very much improved as well. So it was fantastic to have people like that in the cars, really.
Oh, and it's getting a bit hair and scared towards the end there, isn't it? That's two races here. Farfus picked out some doozies, haven't he? I thought he just ran around YouTube and just selected two in a row, but no, he picked two races that were absolutely fantastic. We had two last lap changes of the lead there. You've seen that Troy lost the lead on the final straight on the last lap going down to turn one, and then he gained it back. Then, and I think Brothers was absolutely deflated by the end of that race, which was probably quite gutting indeed. And talking of which, Mika Hakkinen lost the world champion, lost the Grand Prix winner back in 2001 for something similar, albeit his McLaren broke down rather than getting out of shape there. Of course, we're hopefully going to be on the new configuration of the Spanish Grand Prix next year, which I'm looking forward to. Back to the old school days, I say, Alex. Hopefully you can remember those days before that chicane. As we now just go down to the end of the classification there. You did mention Mr. Rage there. He was my personal driver of the season. I kept singing his praises throughout the season. Remember that this is Mr. Rage's first full season in gold. He did a magnificent job, and Liam did as well with the Haas team then. And now we focus on to Zandvoort then. This was kind of where it was getting a bit, squeaky bum time, I think Sir Alex Ferguson used to say. Alex, I think that there is a lot of needle going into this race, if I remember rightly. It was getting a bit hot under the collar for certain drivers then, and especially with a tight, twisty circuit. How would you feel going into this race there, knowing that there is so much at stake then, and we still got quite a long way to go in the championship, and that's a great start from Percy.
Yeah, well, if I was, especially on this type of circuit, I would be very worried indeed, just because any little mistake, anything that goes wrong, any tiny little thing that goes wrong, you're pretty much off the wall, out of the race and into a wall potentially. So it is always a risk, and around the sort of narrow circuits where Zandvoort is very limited, you can literally stay on that grey bit of tarmac, which is not very wide indeed, compared to some circuits especially, and then other than that you're in a wall or you're in the grass there, and that is going to cost you places, time, and potentially your wing as well. So I know that there was a bit, the rivalry was carrying on. Of course, we'll see more of it in this race itself, but it was a battle and a half, and I think it was just unfortunate that of what happened later on. But we'll have to come to that in a minute.
Yeah, and I do understand that it can get a bit heated. Personally, I really enjoyed it myself. Yeah, it's I do understand the drivers were getting frustrated with each other, and that's a great move between Nigel and Gamer. And of course, Nigel, this is where Nigel started to take the reins for the Williams team, and I think you started coming as well a bit more off the not nosy then, trying to steady the ship then, which has been a appalling season for the Williams team. But I personally do like it when the drivers do get a bit feisty every now and again. Then we do like a bit of nicey, but of course, in the real world of Formula 1, we did enjoy it when Hamilton and Verstappen was going at it, hammering tongs, where we had Horner and Wolf as well. But then again, that's because I'm a very sinister man. Mr. Rage then unfortunately spit in there, but apart from that, he did have a great season, I think. And oh dear, sorry, Mr. Rage. But we're just taking a look at Bannister going on the inside there, and Mortal in the Ferrari. One man I want to talk about as well, hopefully before the end of this season review, is Sam Green. Nosy, he had a great Grand Prix in Azerbaijan. Since the turn of the year, he had an incredible turnaround of season, because I think the first 6 races, Sam Green had a miserable start to his ALR career, but then all of a sudden, Monaco onwards, he was absolutely fantastic. He was a new man, you could say.
Yeah, I think it was. We saw it as well in that in the clip from Miami. There, it was the first lap, and he retired going round. I think it was turn 2 or 3, in those conditions as well that we were talking about. So, he was the first retirement in that Grand Prix, and then I think we went on to, I think it was, like I said, Azerbaijan. He finished P2, didn't he, with a fantastic result. and then it kicked on from there. Really, I think credit to Sam Green. He was one of the best drivers on the grid there. To be fair, especially from an admin point of view, he just gets on with the job. Then turns up to most races, does his best in the car each race, and doesn't complain or whinge about anything. He just gets on with it, which is like I said, a dream for an admin from my point of view. So that's why I think he's up there in my books for sure. But no, Sam, he's done a fantastic job as well. He's come in and actually, as you said, he's improved massively throughout the season as well. And I think that's also a good thing. Going back to your point as well from the last race about the long season as well, it can really help you. It can help or hinder you, I suppose, in a way. It can either go really well or go badly. But I think for Sam, it's really helped. The long season has really helped because he's got better and better as each race has gone on, and he's got more and more confident in the car, and he's got the results to prove it.
And then into the pits comes Boxer as well. I did want to talk about Sam Green as well because he had, I think he's had 21 or 22 starts this season. It's been absolutely mega stuff indeed. That, and this is where it gets crunched, Alex. So I hope you're sat down because this is going to get very feisty indeed. We've got Percy coming out of the Percy coming on the outside of Boxer coming out now. I remember commentating on this race, and I couldn't believe it. These two just seemed to couldn't get away from each other because they were like banging wheels and everything leading up to this race there, and they always seem to be tied towards each other on circuit. We've seen this with Hamilton and Massa back in 2011, where them two came to blows an awful lot as well. Every race they seem to somehow end on the same piece of tarmac, exactly like Boxtel and Percy. And I feel then maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, Alex, but I do feel that this was the race where Troy really just pushed on. Then this was his second race win in a row. Then he went on to win his third race win, I think, in Monza later on, next 2 weeks, I think it was, because he had a lot of breaks in this season. But I think he went on to win 3 races in a row, and this is where he really took off in the championship there. Boxtel did. It was absolutely incredible form he was on at this stage of proceedings then, as we're just winding up now then. But Alex, did you feel when you was watching this race, when you were, you probably weren't actually watching this race, but I'm sure that Farf, when you were talking, but did you feel what was going on then from your point of view when you was in the cockpit in this race? Did you know what the outcome was going to be in this one?
I think I could sense it on the track there, but as you can see, a massive smash there for both the championship protagonists. They, of course, were leading the championship, definitely both in the top 3 at that stage of the season as well, and unfortunately both out of the Grand Prix. And I think. In some senses, it felt like it was inevitable at some stages, didn't it, as well? And I think maybe in this Grand Prix, especially like you were saying about the type of the track it is, and just making that one little error, one move too many, and that is 2 drivers off the circuit there into the wall. But yeah, it was just a bit of a shame now, unfortunately, for at this stage of the Grand Prix of the season as well, because it would have been even better, I think, if we had a sort of 3-way fight for the title. But of course, taking that away from Troy, like you were saying as well earlier, he has to capitalise on his rivals' mistakes, and he's done that fantastically this season. Of course, again we can see him, of course, in the lead of this Grand Prix as he takes us away once again. But whatever you can do, the only thing you can do as a driver really is score as many points as you can, and that is usually finishing ahead of your rivals as well. And unfortunately for Geordie Boxtel and for Lucas Percy, they weren't in the race to be able to get any points in this one.
No, unfortunately not. But I think that you're exactly right, Alex. We need to now focus on Troy because Troy this season, I think he had 18 podiums, something like that. Then I haven't got my stat book in front of me, but 18 podiums there, which is, I think, about 3 or 4 more than anyone else. And that is a lot of points there. He had no DNFs either, Troy didn't. He was so consistent. And his Markey and Alhan, 2 and 1, don't go through there, unfortunately, guys. It's a lovely spin around there. But you can. We also had a carbon copy again now, didn't we, between Immortal and Nigel? Goodness gracious me, 2 previous race winners there. You could, as you said, Alex, this circuit is really brutal on all drivers there, experienced all newcomers. But Troy, he was magnificent. Now I do think that we need to sing the praise of Troy. He was magnificent. Oh dear, his game has had issues there as well. But Troy's 7 Grand Prix wins this season. He had 5 pole positions as well. He was always in qualifying, may not have been his strongest suit then, but more often than not, he was always there or thereabouts, wasn't he? Troy was there, and then his race performance on some occasions was absolutely second to none. Then, and I'm not going to say too much more about this race then, but Troy, I think, had this definitely was in it to win it even before the issues that happened there. But Troy taking the second of 3 race wins in a row at that point. Now, I remember that Troy was also a world champion for silver as well. Alex, of course, with Troy there winning in silver then, and also having a championship fight a couple of seasons ago, did you think that would have helped Troy then?
Yeah, I think. I think it was much more comfortable in his silver season when he won the title then, because I think he was he didn't have to deal with the likes of the pressure, I suppose you could say, from Geordie and from Lucas Percy there in that season. But no, nonetheless, I think, like I said, having that experience there, winning the title behind you as well, it sort of secures you in a way, because especially in a long season as well, like this one, you know how to sort of go about it. You know that you just need to keep on being consistent, and like you said with Troy, he's been very consistent this season as well, and especially getting a fantastic result. The amount of podiums that he's got is incredible. So yeah, he knew what he needed to do. Maybe a bit of that from the silver season where he won as well. But I think he just got his head down and focused on the job at hand, and he got himself the result he needed.
And from my point of view, I'm a massive ALR fan. I love it. There's to be honest, I'm quite one-dimensional, unfortunately. So sorry, guys. I don't really watch much other league racing. But from my point of view, to see Troy become the second driver in ALR history to win both the silver and gold championships, that gives me a bit of a warm glow, Alex. I might be getting a bit emotional on my old self now, but doesn't that feels really good to say that out loud? Do you, in seeing these drivers that have been with us for so long, take a championship? Then, how doesn't that just make you feel like so happy for Troy, especially when he first started off in gold? He wasn't. No disrespect to Troy, but I remember he did struggle quite a bit, and I think that there is a race in Mexico where he turned his fortunes around. I can't remember if it was season 6 when he was with teammates of Emerson, but he turned his season around, and then since then he has absolutely took off. What do you make of Troy overall then, as we enter the last race of the season here in gold?
Yeah, well, to be fair, he's a fantastic driver indeed. You can't be a champion without being a fantastic driver, of course. I remember when he first came into silver, and he was reserving in his first appearance. I think it was at Zandvoort as well, when that was new to the game. I think it was back in the 2020 game when that came out. But yeah, he was having a horrible time. He was spinning at the final corner, final turn every time. Literally just couldn't. I was like, this guy's not going to make it, sort of thing. And then he turns into the double champion that he is, of course, winning silver. I think it was the season after, or yeah, I think it was the season after. Yeah. So it might have been season 4 of silver, and then of course. Winning gold here in season 8 with a fantastic performance once again this season. So and also I was there when he won his first Grand Prix in the top division there in Japan last season in season 7. So I was his teammate, thankfully. So I got the party chat in the ear from that one when he crossed the finish line to win. So no, it's a massive achievement there from Troy to actually step up to the levels that he needed to do to get from silver champion even there to gold champion is not a easy feat for anybody. So yeah, he's done a fantastic job, and of course, like you said, the first driver ever to do something like that as well in ALR. So credit to him for putting in the work really and putting in the effort. I know it sounds a bit silly to say that sort of thing about playing an F1 game, but if he wants to win the championship, he needs to put in the time, put in the practice, and put in the work, and that's what he's done, and he's got the result for it.
He has indeed, and I couldn't have said it better myself, to be honest, Alex. That was Troy has been magnificent this season. I think he's deserved the championship this season, but with Boxtel and Percy right on his heels for next season, I cannot wait for those 3 to go at it again, to be honest. And selfishly, I would love the championship to have gone down the wire in Abu Dhabi, personally, because I think it's only ever happened once in the ALR's history then, but hopefully it will happen again. Well, in gold anyway, so hopefully it will happen again one one day in the not too distant future. A quick shout out to Chazza. This was Chazza's best season, I think, barring his debut, I think in season 5 as Boxer going for a spin now. So really well done to Chazza this season, getting 2 podiums, and I think testament to Chazza. I think he really enjoyed these ground effect cars this season. So really good stuff to see Chazza up there, and I think he finished in 5th in the World Championship in the end, which is really good stuff indeed. We had an almighty scrap, Alex, between from 5th down to 9th, with Mr. Rage, with Green, with Chazza, with Gamer, and I think Vesley was also involved as well. Vesley having a decent season as well. I believe or not, Alex, Vesley was there, a part of our first ever ALR race back in Australia in 2018, I think it was, which was quite astounding. But Vesley there just having a decent season as well. But the midfield, we talk about more about the front, but what about the midfield this season? And they were separated by less than 10 points for most of the season. It's been absolutely fantastic to watch the midfield as well.
Yeah, I think going back to the top three pretty much almost sorted themselves out in every race, didn't they? Unless they were having a difficult time. And I think that opened the door to literally anybody else being able to get up to P4 pretty much, or anything else, anywhere else in between really in the points. So and I think that's why it was such a great season for the middle of the field there for Gold, because it depended on the track. You could have somebody finishing from 4th, and then they might not have a good race the next week, and a difficult track for them, and then they'd be down the order, and then somebody else would step into that 4th place. So it varied so much in the season. You couldn't confirm you couldn't confirm really a top 10 in Gold, to be fair, in most races. So it was it just lended itself to a bit more entertaining, a bit more interesting order, and a lot of very close racing in the midfield as well.
It was action up and down the season. We did start off this review quite negatively, didn't we, Alex? Where we was just talking about how some drivers didn't like the game, and we had quite a number of drivers coming in and out of Gold. But we have had some incredible racing as well, up and down the field. And as you mentioned, the top 3, they've been in a league of their own, haven't they? They've been fantastic. They've basically turned this into a 2-tier season sometimes, haven't they? It's been magnificent. But then behind them, then it was anyone's game, wasn't it? It was Gurman there on one occasion. Then we had Chazza, who is flying. Mr. Rage got his first ever pole position back in the Italian Grand Prix as well. I just remembered it when he was flying past Death Dragon there on the outside. What an incredible bit of racing that was. But Alex, overall then, we did start off negatively about Gold then, but I think it has been a fantastic season. It's certainly going to live long in the memory for me personally, because of how close the championship is, how 2 of the top 3 drivers kept coming together, with and a lot of action on and off the circuit. But how would you sum up the season as a whole? What would you say about Gold season 8?
For sure, it's been a thrilling season. To be fair, I think everyone's put in as much of a show as they could do as well in throughout the season. That is, fair play to, of course, Troy, the champion there. Of course, Geordie Boxster in P2 and Lucas Percy in P3. They put on some great shows indeed. Whether it was shows for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, it was still an entertaining season from that point of view. And I think, like I said, touched on the midfield battle being really close indeed as well. So I think, like you said, Gold's been it's been an up and down season as well for Gold, especially in terms of the driver numbers and that sort of thing. It's not been the positive on that front, but I think in terms of the racing itself, apart from a few hiccups here and there, I think it's been absolutely epic to watch Gold. And I remember, of course, when I haven't been racing in Gold, I've definitely been watching it as well, with you on the comms box, I should say. So it's always been a good race to watch for sure. Unfortunately for Chazza, they're not having a good race at the end of the season there, but like I said, a good season overall for him as well. But so it's just I think it's definitely up there with one of the best seasons for Gold. Like I said, the longest season as well, so it was always going to have more difficulties. Sometimes there's going to be more interest in the racing. Sometimes there's not going to be so much interest in the racing, as German there is deciding to go for a bit of a spin there. So sometimes it's going to be a lot tougher there, of course, with the long game or long season as well. That is, so there we go. But overall, I'd say it's a very good season, and fair play to everybody who's cracked on and finished it as well.
Very good, a very good end of summary there, Alex. Fantastic stuff, and that was the end of the race. Round 24 out of 24 there. Percy taking, I think it was the last two Grand Prix wins in ALR Gold, wasn't it? So remember though that I think he did that in season 6 and didn't have a very good season 7. But fingers crossed that's not the case there for Percy. And hopefully he can crack on that next season as well. Looking forward to next season. Then, of course, we're hoping to have the majority of the drivers back then for gold there. Looking forward to seeing how Troy can defend his world championship. We need to mention Farfed, of course, he's been with us goodness gracious me, he's been with us far too long now, hasn't he, Alex? But really good stuff indeed there for Farfed. Always available, really good stuff indeed there from Farfed. And unfortunately, I've almost run out of time. Let's quickly go through the drivers and the constructors there. Troy won the championship there by 48 points in the end there from Boxtown second with Percy in third. German, a strong drive, a strong season in full position, as we mentioned. Chaz and Green and Vesey, great seasons. And with Mr. Rage as well in 8th position there. Of course, KD only getting 1 point in the end with Indigo and Sweet there, unfortunately finishing in the relegation. Then in the Constructors' Championship, AlphaTauri, dominating season for AlphaTauri. Didn't touch on the AlphaTauri much, did we? But they were absolutely magnificent indeed. Then with Aston Martin was quite a country mile behind them, but they did pit McLaren to third. Then and McLaren's hold on the constructors has been relinquished this season there, but they'll be coming back next season. And now then we're going to be on to the awards then for gold. Then enjoy. We'll see you next season. Goodbye.